Hi, I'm Megan Walker, and welcome to 365 Community Chats. So what is this? Well, it's a podcast and YouTube video series where I sit down and chat with members of the Power Platform, Dynamics, and Microsoft community. So sit down, get comfy, and let's catch up with someone. In episode 4 of 365 Community Chats, I chatted with my buddy Scott Durow. Scott moved from the UK to Vancouver, Canada, and is embracing the new pace of life and unique approach to finding his Christmas tree this year. Scott is an 8-time Microsoft Business Applications MVP and the author of one of my favourite tools in the XrmToolBox, the Ribbon Workbench. Let's see what Scott is up to. Hello, Scott.
Hey, Megan.
How are you?
Very good, thank you. Nice to see you.
You too. How are things? How's Canada?
Canada is big. That's the first thing that springs to mind when you describe Canada. Big and very, very rainy at the moment. It's like, yes, where we are. I mean, I'm very thankful that we're not in the places that have had floods, but there's been crazy floods over here. I mean, we kind of, in the UK, we always get distracted by the specific flavor of floods that the UK gets, but over here, yes, well, I mean, not that you'd want to taste the water, obviously. It's a particularly foul flavor, but yeah, the floods over here are very different, very, very, very different. Obviously, equally disastrous for the people involved. So, yeah, it's been raining since forever, it seems. But I mean, that's what you get if you come
by the coast. Is that right?
Yeah. So we moved to just off the coast near Vancouver. So there's it's called the Jervis Inlet, I think it is. So basically, if you look at that part of the world on the west of Canada, it's just full of these inlets and fjords. So everything is lots of islands, lots of areas that you can only get to by marine channels. And so, yeah, we live on one of those things. It's called the Sunshine Coast, which the only way of getting there is by a ferry. I never thought in my entire life. Yeah, I mean, I grew up in my early years in Aldershot in Surrey.
Oh, good place.
Yes, and home of the British Army, I think it is. I never would ever have thought. I mean, I moved obviously up to York, as you know, later on in my childhood, went to school in York. But I'd never thought I would be ever living in a place where the only way you could get to is by ferry. Basically, I'm living in Balamory. I mean, I don't know, you've probably never seen this, but a kids show called. I mean, basically, that's what it is. It's like a small town that's got fishing is a kind of a thing. You get to it by ferry, but it's only the ferry ride's only like 25, 30 minutes to get to Vancouver. So
right, okay, that kind of sounds like to me, the best of both worlds, because I like that sort of remote sort of, if I don't have to speak to anyone, I don't need to, and I don't need to for a while, but if I want to go and be sort of in a bit of a hustle and bustle area or get to civilization, then you can do it relatively quickly. So,
exactly.
I think that sounds perfect.
Yeah, that's right. And a very, very good internet connection. It's all fiber. It's actually faster internet connection here than it was where I was back in Oxford in the UK. So,
well, it's shit in the UK, isn't it? So.
it's certainly variable though. And yeah, like you say, you're just far enough for it to kind of be cut off from the big city, but you've got it there if you want. So yeah, nice, very, very nice community and everything else.
Nice. I like it.
So you're welcome to come visit anytime you want.
I would love to. It's one place that when I lived in America, it was always one place that I'm like, it's just right there, but I just never got to go. So hopefully one day, once the borders are smooth to cross.
Yeah. World travel seems like a crazy phenomenon. It's like
bit messy, isn't it? So in Canada, then, are you still? Well, I guess you can do this from anywhere. But in terms of, obviously, was it this year that you? Yes, I think it was at Scottish Summit where you talked about the changes to the ribbon and ribbon workbench and what that kind of might mean. do you still do stuff with the Ribbon Workbench? Is it still something where you kind of like putting out releases and working on changing things, adding new stuff, or is that kind of now like redundant?
Well, I mean, it's definitely not redundant. I mean, the version 2, it's like you say, it was. So at Scottish Summit, I said that like Sean Connery, didn't I? Scottish Summit.
You had a wish. Sorry, that was really
yeah, right. Probably better than my impression. But hey, he was Scottish, so there is a tenuous link there. But it was the Scottish Summit that I did announce that whole commanding V2 thing, because I've been working with Casey from the Microsoft team for a little while, and he said, hey, you can kind of have the scoop on this, which I was like, wow, that's cool.
Yeah. Well deserved. A few years of kind of working hard on Ribbon Workbench to be able to be like, you can announce this. I think it was only fair.
Well, I mean, it was. I couldn't really show any screenshots. It was a sort of like okay, well, there's something coming here. It was more of a hint, but I mean, it's still very much in preview. So, I mean, it didn't come out into preview for another couple of months after Scottish Summit last year. So, and it's still, it's a lot to do, and it's part of this whole convergence piece, bringing in Canvas, Power FX into the model-driven world. And so, and that story has been going on for a very long time. I mean, it's not something that is easy to do. It's not even just about, okay, well, we've got a backlog of technology that we need to kind of go and build. It's much deeper than that. It's much more about like the ethos of the platform and what does it mean to build apps today? Because the Fusion development teams, where you've got pro coders and you've got low coders working together in a collaborative way, this whole deficit that Charles Lamana keeps on talking about in terms of, and I think, all the way up to Scott Guthrie and Satya Nadella, they talk about this fact that we're going to be falling short of number of people who can be building apps based on the demand for apps, given the current trajectory of people working in app development. So yeah, it's a really broad topic. So the commanding V2 is just a tiny little jigsaw piece. In my mind, I've got like a little icon, the little icon of the jigsaw piece that you see.
No, don't use that.
But it's funny though, because that's the default icon. Like if you don't set an icon for something, generally that's the fallback icon. And I think that's no surprise, is because, and it's poignant, right? Because it is about jigsaw pieces, and it's about bringing all these things to kind of fit together. And so, yeah, the Ribbon Workbench is certainly not something that I've lost interest, because there's still this need, because V2, which is the new commanding Power FX, and V1, they work alongside each other. They coexist. So it's not like even when V2 goes GA, it's not going to be like, oh, suddenly you don't need V1 anymore, because there's still going to be legacy stuff that you're going to need to customize this until all of the first party apps and the platform is all moved over. You're still going to need to be able to customize it. So I do have like this sort of proportion of my working month that is dedicated to constantly regression testing the Ribbon Workbench and that's becoming quite a lot of work, actually, because the number of updates that we have. But it's been fairly stable. But as you know, with the smart buttons, that's another route that I take. So I always talk about smart buttons as being
asking you to do magical things, so you think, okay, I'll add that in.
Oh yeah, thank you for those requests, Megan.
Yeah, you're welcome. I was going to say that, but for anyone that's listening, this to me is one of the I don't know what the right word is, but when you look at examples of people that share with the community and give back to the community, people like you that have created something like this, like anyone that's listening who doesn't realize, Scott doesn't get paid to ever create or do any follow-up work or development for the Ribbon Workbench. It's community stuff and people that do these things with XrmToolBox and create these amazing tools. Like, I am so thankful every day that I work on a project where I'm either doing something with a portal, and I'm thankful for someone that's created, I can't think who does the portal code editor one, but I think that might be one of Tangui's, and then Jonas Rapp, who created Fetch XML Builder, and you with the Ribbon Workbench. All of these people that make our lives so much easier. So it must be, you must still love it, because otherwise you'd be like, ugh, and wouldn't put as much into it, because it's hard, isn't it, to keep going with something.
Yeah, and I make sure I don't bite off more than I can chew, right? So because it's very easy to put stuff out, but it's not so easy to maintain something going forwards and keep, because I don't want to be fire and forget with these things. I don't want to just like, oh, well, here's some code and do what you like with it. I want it to fit in with my overall flight path, if you like. Flight path, they use that in schools, the school system, which is a weird system, because they talk about, okay, well, the grades that you're going to get in year whatever is based on your year 7 grades, which seems a little bit unfair to me. But having a flight path that says, what are the things that I want to be involved with? Where is my passion? What are the things that I'm excited about? And making sure that all of the things that I do, it's not just, oh, here's a tool because I needed to solve a problem. Because I write tons of code. I'm always writing tools. I'm always writing for my own projects.
All right, so for teams that.
But it's all developers. Yeah, I know exactly. I can't. Oh, look, there's one there. Oh, I'm just sitting on one there. Oh, I just stood on. It's like a Legos. It's like, did I just say Legos? That's terrible of me. Lego. Yeah, it's in the singular. But the point I'm making is that all developers, all pro coders and low coders as well, will write things that are time saving, things that are about reproduce, being able to constantly, consistently doing something the same way each time saving. You do it once, you can do it many times. But then to make a decision to say, well, actually everyone else could then make use of that, A, but then B, am I willing to actually then constantly support that going forwards is quite something that I don't take lightly. So
that's the bigger piece of it is I can do a 26 series or 30-day series or whatever of videos or blog posts or whatever, and I know that I put it out and I'm done and it's finished and it's, here you go, here's something that I've created. So yeah, it is a much bigger commitment to say, right, I mean, like you and I have both done a course that we sell online, and the amount of effort that you put in, and then to be like, oh, something's changed, I've got to update consistently or continually, so that your product or whatever it is that you've put out there is still viable and is still useful to people, and you're not training someone on old technology or sort of the screenshots are wrong or whatever. So it's a lot of effort, isn't it? So
yeah, definitely. I mean, I've rewritten the Ribbon Workbench 3 times, so over the, so it's not like, because stuff changes, but it's like I do enjoy it. And going back to the whole merging of the apps, converging of model driven and canvas, the Ribbon is such a key part of that I've got some ideas for how I can bring the sort of the smart button world into that world. So making it, because again, it's about productivity, and it's about, okay, well, there's this, normally this would take you X amount of time, but how can we make that quicker and easier? And the great thing is that as soon as you introduce Power FX, things are already quicker. So you're starting from the bar is already set high there. But I've got a new video coming out probably later December, maybe early January, depending when I schedule it. But talking about my wish list for the command bar and what you can do currently now in the V2, and versus actually what I want to be able to unblock, so that before it gets to GA, it's almost like these are the gaps that I see that that you need to know about now if you're currently using. I've got a blog post that kind of does a little bit of a comparison. This is what you can do now, but it's much more like a showing how that works. And so that'll be on my Power Apps Cafe series.
I was going to say that series is that's something that I'm so far. All of the ones that you've done, I think have caught my attention, mainly because I like the way you explain things, and I can actually watch it and learn. And I don't know, it's interesting, isn't it? Because everyone's got their own unique way of taking a concept or an idea and then being able to break it down. And I think there's a fine line for somebody that's a developer to not break it down enough, or to break it down too much and then dumb it down. And I think you've kind of got that balance to where I don't feel like I'm being spoken to and made to feel like I'm an idiot, but I also can walk away and say, okay, that was a concept that was a little bit above my knowledge level to start with, but now I can walk away and be comfortable or confident enough to be able to grasp it or understand it. And that's not an easy skill necessarily that everybody has. So, kudos that you've been able to do that.
Thank you. That's very kind of you to say so.
Yeah,
I mean, it's tricky because I love doing videos, and I mean, the reason I did the Power Apps Cafe one is I wanted to be able to have a route to be able to do more videos in a less sort of high quality production way. But I love doing videos on code. I love showing VS Code and like, oh, you do this. However, I sometimes, because there's this ongoing debate, right, about what's the most ideal way for people to learn. And some people, the people do constantly do these quizzes, like these surveys on Twitter and LinkedIn. This endless. Well, do you like blog posts?
Because we all have our different way of learning.
Well, exactly. So that's right. Exactly. That's the thing, right? So everyone learns. So I suppose unconsciously, I've created this demarcation, this Power Apps Cafe or the videos I do are for things that you can tend to explain in a degree of completeness in the sort of the 20-30 minute mark.
Yeah.
Whereas the blog posts I tend to do are much more either sort of deep dive technical stuff, code, or if you get this error, this is the kind of thing you need to do, or watch out for this particular technique, using this technique of code because this may happen. So much more that kind of pro coder kind of way. So I sort of unconsciously, and I never really set out to do that, but that's where it's sort of laid. That's the lay of the land. And I use my blog posts to do things because pro coders tend to Google stuff. That's what they do. If anyone tells you that they Bing stuff, they're lying. But the thing is that
unless it's forced upon you because you've just created a new profile, you haven't changed the settings yet.
Yes,
because we all know that's the first thing to do.
Or if you're doing a presentation at Microsoft and you say yes, and then you Bing it, wink, wink,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the discoverability. Although, of course, now with the transcripts in YouTube, that's quite cool. The fact that you can actually now you get Google hits on transcripts.
Does it work that way?
Yeah. So
but only if you put them in yourself, or from the ones that get generated.
I'm not sure, to be honest. But I mean, I get so quite often I'll be technically doing some technical Googling for a technical thing, how to do something in some particular like React or whatever.
Oh,
yes, that's right. Yeah, exactly. Oh, look, who is this person? Megan V. Walker. So yeah, and then it will give you the Google results. Will give you a specific 1 minute 30. It'll actually take you straight in at that point in time. I mean, more often than not, it's none to do with what you're Googling. So there's a bit of work to do there, but still, I mean, you can see you can see that it's leveling the playing field there, and with AI, with voice channel and stuff like that. So on the XRM Toolcast, and if you don't listen to it, please do listen to it because we have. Oh, I know we've got 3 listeners because we met them at Summit NA, Summit North America.
Not to everyone. I listen to a lot.
Well, there we go. So 3, maybe 4 occasionally. So Yes, thank you. It's very generous of you to give a whole half of your listenership. I mean, I used to say we only had one listener, but the thing is that, you know, in the XrmToolcast, we were talking to Tricia Sinclair about the voice channel in Omnichannel, you know, and the fact that transcribing of text is getting so much, a voice is getting so much better now in understanding accents and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's really exciting. You can kind of start to see how that boundary between blog posts and video maybe start to blur in the future.
Yeah, and then, I mean, with YouTube, you've got also not only the transcripts, but you can also put in your chapters and things like that. So in theory, if it's smart enough to pull out from transcripts, you could be clever enough to, if it works this way, which I don't see why it wouldn't, is to use your chapters almost like headers in HTML, to where you're kind of putting in the keywords as your chapter headers, so to speak, because that's also another option. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it is kind of like, I would rather Google, look at a blog and like scan a blog and know, oh, that maybe that's an option. Oh no, just discard it quickly. So I find, for me, blogs as well are good for quickly finding. Ideally, you've then got a video in your blog as well, so that I can watch if I want more information. But so in terms of sort of things that you're, obviously the Power FX, that's a really big thing that you've been sort of focused on, and I'm assuming generally excited about. Is there anything else that's kind of going on, either that's coming out that's new from Microsoft, or does Scott Durow have anything that is actually quite old, but you just start dabbling in that's now new to you? Is there anything sort of like that you ever get drawn into on a project?
Well, I think the thing I've been drawn into recently is the low code piece, because I would always say call myself a developer, but actually I was lying to myself, because the very reason I got into the CRM in the first place was the fact that it was quick to build stuff from a metadata perspective. Now, with convergence, with model driven becoming more popular, more prevalent with the Canvas people, you know, it quickly became clear to me that actually this Power FX thing was not just a flash in a pan thing. It's not just okay, well, you can make some tin pot apps. That kind of look a bit flashy with some colors that like retina burning kind of, you know, people. People are nowadays, there's design guidelines, and people are looking at accessibility. Accessibility is huge. So I do a lot of work with the code components, PCF, and accessibility is a big part of that. So, you know, like for any project, building in a large proportion of time for accessibility testing and making sure that it's keyboard accessible and it works well with screen readers. And because if you build a code component that doesn't play well with screen reader, it stands out like a sore thumb now, because accessibility is so high on the priority of the Power Apps team that everything is now really working very well with that, especially with the investments in Windows 11 and all those kind of things. So when you take on that project of working on a code component, you've got this. So my wife talks about a hidden to-do list. I don't know if you've ever heard that phrase, but a hidden to-do list is.
We all have them.
Yeah, but so yes, so we do, and it's those things that you might see around the house. You know, like there's like a cup on the sideboard that you haven't moved, and it's starting to fester and grow some. You know, we've all got them, right? Those parts. Maybe you don't. Maybe you got.
And there's the mold in the.
I've got teenage children. You know,
that's true. I was mold everywhere.
But you know, the thing is that it's a to-do list, because you see it and it triggers that to-do list. So with PCF code components, there is a hidden to-do list, is that you don't immediately know about it, because it's not something someone just says, oh, we need some kind of component to do some flashy drag and drop kind of thing, you know. But then it's like, oh, well, how do you make it work with a screen reader? How do you make it work with a keyboard, keyboard navigation? on all of these kind of things. How do you make it work with theming so that, you know, when people start to think, how do you make it work with security, trimming, all those kind of things? And so you doing something in that pro coding kind of world is very easy to underestimate. And this is, as a development community, underestimation is rife. It's been a problem since as long as I can remember. You know, and it's always been like this joke, you know, the project manager or the stakeholders, you know, they say, oh, well, of course, always double any development estimate you get. And then, of course, and then the project manager takes that doubled estimate and then they double it again or add a percentage of. So by the time you get
the 25% on for my time. Yeah,
exactly. So by the time you get the estimates, you're looking, you're thinking like, it comes back full circle to the developer and they're like, wait, what? This is just going to be like a weekend thing. And sometimes it is, but more often, actually, it's closer to that estimate that's been bulked out.
Because of the to-do list, yeah.
Exactly. So when you start to look at PowerFX and that revolution, the low code revolution, it's less to me about this, the militia that there's a lot of us and them, you know, there's a lot of people who are working in pro coding kind of getting very defensive, people working in low coding kind of getting very sort of I don't know, maybe a feeling of superiority.
I was going to say arrogant was a word that popped up a little bit, which unfortunately we do see that on social media.
Yeah, which is human nature, right? It's a tribalness is a thing that we all do it. We all do it. It doesn't matter if it's code or no code, or if it's football teams, or if it's, you know, there's always that kind of us and them attitude in human nature. And so really, you know, when you look at it like that, it kind of starts to spill into this whole the ethos of how we can get better at working as the humankind to build IT systems.
Yeah.
So suddenly it starts
keeping a healthy necessary level of respect for anybody that doesn't do the job that you do, I think is because we're all, for me, like I've said, people that can sit and just write some JavaScript, and the number of times, you know, you or other people in our community where I've said, try to do something, it's probably really simple, and then you just say, here's some code. And I'm like, oh, when I see it, I understand it, but there's no way I could just sit and write it myself. And so I think there's having that level of respect that we're all just at completely different journeys and we've all got different skill sets and we all need each other. And that's the thing I find hard sometimes when you see these social media rants or, you know, arguments or spats or whatever, and it's just pointless. We all need each other. So
yeah, exactly. We absolutely, and respect is exactly the word. Respect is the it's like Sarah Lagerquist and I did that swearing on Charles Lamanna's face. It was like 2 years ago now. You know, we're actually in person at Scottish Summit about the Pro Code No Code Unite hashtag that we did. So yeah, respect is what it's about. But I think so suddenly I found myself in this dichotomy. It's like, okay, well, I'm a developer, but how do I embrace this low code? So I had to sort of mentally do this flip, and suddenly I was thinking about PowerFX as something that is more about the how we do something and how we work more efficiently, rather than it being this kind of us and them type, you know, oh, this isn't really what I do, that's something over there. Yeah. So it suddenly becomes something, absolutely, it's what I do. You know, it's like PowerFX, low code. Absolutely, that's exactly what I am, because I'm building apps. That's who I am. I build apps. And so I'm very much embracing PowerFX, and become so much so it's become, you know, almost like, okay, well, how can we do something now? Can we build it in PowerFX? I use PowerFX to as much as possible in any solution to try and glue the things together. Now, and it's just interesting you mentioned portals and JavaScript, because actually I see now, you know, I'm always trying to look that one step ahead. I'm always trying to look over the horizon, you know, because now on the horizon, we've got app convergence. We've got convergence between model-driven and Canvas apps. But over the horizon, portals, you know, like the recent announcements about the progressive web apps and you know, being able to shrink wrap. Well, PowerFX should be something that's used in portals. You shouldn't have to write Java. So that getting that little snippet of JavaScript that someone's given you, which ultimately works today, but who knows if it's going to work. So it's that declarative programming technique that PowerFX brings us. It's about raising that level of abstraction to the point where you're saying, I'm telling you to do this. The analogy that I use in a lot of my presentations is the fixing a car analogy. Have you heard that analogy?
If you've said it before, then probably. If you said it in one of your videos.
So yeah, well, nice. I like your answer there. Yes, I probably do remember it if you say it. Yes. So it's like fixing. So if you're doing imperative programming, you're asking your friend to come and fix your car, and then you go down. And then you go down. Sorry, if you go doing declarative programming, okay, you're asking them to come and fix your car, and then you go down the pub. Right. So, but imperative programming is you ask them to come and fix your car, and then you're like, pick up that spanner. Okay, go and undo that bolt. Now take that nut out there and put that particular piece in. You can tell I know nothing about cars because I'm not using carburetor and alternator. Yes, these are good quality mechanical sounding words I know nothing about. But that's the thing about imperative programming. If something goes wrong, if you tell them to use the wrong nut or put the wrong part in, it's on you. Whereas if you've gone down the pub and you've asked them to come and fix your car, obviously they're a great friend because they've let you go down the pub whilst they fix your car. I mean, you need friends like that in your life. Yeah. But if it goes wrong, it's on them. And I think that's the thing about declarative programming is that, you would be telling portals what you want to do, not how to do it. Whereas at the moment, because you're doing JavaScript programming, you're telling portals not only what you want to do, but also how to do it. And of course, that means it could break down the line.
Well, I am looking forward to seeing more videos from you where you've got stuff about portals and PowerFX, because that's definitely stuff that I would absorb for sure, because I'm doing more and more portal stuff in my day-to-day world, which I'm loving. So I guess to kind of like wrap this up, seeing as we are very close to the end of the year, what does Canada look like from a Christmas perspective? Are you going to embrace any new traditions that you've found out?
You're
going to try and recreate the British Christmas and crackers and hats and all that stuff.
Well, we were talking about the fact that the quality streak tins here are tiny compared to the quality streaks you get in Tesco's and Sainsbury's. I just remember, you walking into Sainsbury's, Tesco's, and have these towers of quality streaks, that they come but obviously I'll be wearing plaid because that's the Canadian staple. But so actually tomorrow, not tomorrow.
If anyone knows what plaid is.
Yeah, it's checky, kind of that red and the lumberjack shirt kind of thing. Yeah. But actually, at the weekend, we're going into the mountains to cut our Christmas tree down.
Oh, okay, that's a tradition I could get behind. Although when I was a kid, we used to do that, and we used to go into the woods and chop it.
And then the farmer will come out chasing you with a shotgun, right?
Yeah, we didn't actually chop it down ourselves, I don't think, but we would go into the woods and say, we want that one, and then someone else would
okay, right. So there'll be an attendant there that would kind of go, oh yes, and then this is you get a license where they have power lines, and normally they have to clear the trees from below the power lines, because the power lines are not just like power lines that go over fields. These are power lines that go over the mountains. And so they have to get rid of all of the trees that are growing just below the power lines, right?
Because obviously more than anything
it's a necessity. Else. Yeah, so you get a license, which is free, so you don't have to pay for it. And you get in your 4x4 and you drive up the logging roads into a particular area that's been designated as, that year, and you go in and you saw it down, you put it on top of your vehicle, and you come down. And you hope you don't get any chipmunks or anything like that that are coming along for the ride. Very, very, is it Griswold's family Christmas.
Right, well, I'd like to see photos once. I'd like to see photos of it being cut down, and then once you've actually got it transported home and decorated, that would be nice to see.
Yes, and in my lumberjack shirt, looking.
That's
you know,
exactly what I want to see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking time to chat with me. I really appreciate it. We definitely miss you here in the UK, but Canada's very lucky to have you over there now.
Oh, I miss you all terribly as well.
Oh. Okay, well, have a wonderful rest of the year, and we'll catch up soon.
You too, Megan. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for watching this episode of 365 Community Chats. I'm your host, Megan V. Walker, and I'll be back soon chatting with someone else from the Power Platform, Dynamics and Microsoft community. If you enjoyed this, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and ring the bell for notifications.